Hello and welcome to The Deep Dive, where we take a stack of your sources and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge just for you.
Yeah, we try to cut through all the noise and really get straight to what matters, helping you understand the core insights from, the material you've shared with us.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into some pretty fascinating material. It's focused on this incredibly ambitious goal, speaking English fluently in just 30 days.
Wow.
That definitely sounds like a headline designed to grab your attention, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the main source we're looking at today is a transcript. It's from a YouTube conversation channel called Easy English Talk, and it lays out this very specific plan for that 30-day target.
Right, and our mission here is to unpack this material. What does this 30-day promise really mean, according to this plan? And maybe more importantly, what are the practical, actionable steps you can actually follow right now to work towards it?
Exactly. We're going to explore what this source claims is achievable and how. It's presented, like you said, not as some kind of magic trick, but as a path, one built on consistent daily action.
Okay.
So we're here to guide you through what this material highlights as most important for your English learning journey.
All right, let's unpack this then. Where do we even begin with a goal like fluency in 30 days? Seems huge.
Well, the source itself starts with a really crucial point, and one I think is often misunderstood. It's about defining what fluency actually means in this context.
Ah, okay.
Because, many people imagine it means speaking perfectly, like a native speaker, zero mistakes ever.
I think that's definitely the default image for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So this source says that's not the goal here.
Exactly. It explicitly emphasizes that fluency in this plan is more about how smoothly and confidently you can speak. It's less about achieving perfect grammar or, pronunciation right from day one.
Okay, so less about zero mistakes, more about the flow.
Precisely. It's the ability to express your ideas clearly, to get your point across without too many awkward pauses or hesitations.
Right.
It's about communication, really, making yourself understood and, this is important, keeping the conversation moving forward.
What's really interesting there is the point the source makes about mistakes. They actually say making small mistakes is totally fine.
Yeah.
In fact, they point out that even native speakers make mistakes, but the key difference is they just keep talking.
Yeah, that's such a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it? So this definition of fluency is tied much more to confidence and that ability to just keep the flow going, speaking naturally, understanding others, even if it's not, flawless. And the source is very clear. This is built step by step with practice, not by trying to cram everything at once.
Got it. Think progress, communication, not overnight perfection. The source does mention there are different kinds of fluency, though, like everyday versus formal.
Right, it touches on that. But the focus of this particular 30-day plan is squarely on the kind of everyday speaking you need for, practical communication right away.
So if your goal is to sound like you're giving a complex business presentation on day 30, maybe this specific plan isn't aiming for that level.
Probably not, no.
But if it's about having simple conversations, understanding people, being understood,
Yeah.
that's the target here.
Exactly. And understanding that definition is really the essential first step. It helps you approach the 30-day goal set out in this material much more realistically.
Okay, now that we've got the source's definition of fluency, clear, confident, flowing communication, mistakes are okay, let's actually look at the plan itself. The one designed to help you work towards that in 30 days.
Right. The plan. The fundamental principle driving this whole thing, according to the source, is daily practice. They really argue that even a small amount done consistently, like every single day, can make a huge difference.
And it's structured pretty clearly, isn't it? Into 4 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks. Each one builds on the last, and each has a distinct focus.
So week 1 is about building that core foundation. Vocabulary, phrases, listening.
That's it, getting the essentials down.
Then week 2 pushes you into actually, speaking. Getting comfortable using the language out loud.
Yep. Overcoming that initial hurdle.
Week 3 then focuses on refining things, improving pronunciation, and boosting confidence.
Polishing it up, yeah.
And finally, week 4 is about bringing it all together.
Right.
Real-life practice and immersion.
Right. Putting it all into action in the real world, or as close as you can get.
And throughout all this, the source really hammers home that consistency isn't just a factor. It seems like it's the most important thing.
Absolutely. That point comes up again and again.
They even mention you don't need hours and hours every day. They talk about 15 to 30 minutes, and I think later even suggest maybe just 10 to 15 minutes. How can such a short amount of time be so impactful, according to them?
Well, the argument is that focused daily effort stops you from forgetting things and it builds a habit.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of cramming, getting overwhelmed, maybe losing motivation.
Yeah, that happens.
These small, consistent steps create momentum. They make the learning stick, especially when you tie them to the specific goals for each week.
Okay, so the structure gives you the roadmap, but your commitment to those, small daily steps is really the engine here.
That's a good way to put it.
All right, let's dive into week 1 then. Building your foundation. This is presented as absolutely crucial.
It really is. Think of it like gathering your basic tools before you start building something. The focus here is on 3 main things: essential vocabulary, common phrases, and getting your listening skills going.
Okay, vocabulary first. The source seems pretty practical here. It says, don't get overwhelmed trying to learn massive lists of words.
Exactly. No need to memorize the dictionary. Focus on the most useful words for everyday life. Simple verbs, basic adjectives, common nouns, things like eat, go, happy, big, house, food, friend, the real basics.
And they give a really powerful tip that goes beyond just memorizing the word itself, right? Using it in a sentence immediately.
Yes, that's so important. Saying, I eat breakfast, instead of just learning the word eat, it helps your brain connect the word to, actual meaning and how it's used right away.
That makes so much sense. It makes the word active, not just a label on a list. What about the phrases part?
Learning common phrases, things like, how are you, what time is it, or can you help me, is presented as essential because, you hear and use them constantly.
Right.
Learning these helps you understand and respond much faster without having to mentally build every single sentence from scratch, word by word.
Yeah, they're like ready-made building blocks for conversation. Okay, and then there's listening practice. The source really stresses hearing English every day.
It does. Using simple materials is key here, like easy podcasts, maybe English videos that have subtitles, or even songs. The goal at first isn't perfect understanding.
Okay.
It's more about just getting your ear used to the sounds, the rhythm, the flow of English. Acclimatizing, really.
And they offer a practical tip for listening to replaying short clips. Why is repetition helpful there?
Because when you listen again, and maybe again, you start to pick out individual words or phrases you definitely missed the first time around. It helps solidify that connection between the sound you're hearing and the meaning.
Right. And to help with all this week 1 stuff, the source suggests tools like flashcards, physical ones or apps.
Yeah, flashcards are great for that daily review. Physical ones work, or apps like Enki or Quizlet. And they also mention just, writing down new words or phrases in a simple notebook. That physical act can help reinforce memory, too.
They even provide a really simple role-play example of how these basics come together. Something like, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. What time is it?
It's 3:00 in the afternoon.
Great. Can you help me with my English homework?
Of course, let's practice together.
See? Super simple sentences. But they use those core words and phrases. Practicing little interactions like that daily, even just saying them out loud to yourself, starts building that muscle memory for speaking.
Absolutely. So the key message for week 1 from this source seems to be focus on steady, consistent progress with these basic but powerful steps. Don't aim for perfection yet.
Exactly. Aim for progress. Build that foundation.
Okay, so you've got your foundational vocabulary and phrases humming along. You're starting to tune your ear with listening. Now what? Welcome to week 2. This is where, you actually start practicing speaking.
Yeah, this is often the step that feels, let's be honest, the most intimidating for learners. That fear of making mistakes or sounding awkward, it's very real. But the source says this week is all about just confronting that and moving past those fears.
And why is actually speaking so important now after building that foundation?
Because speaking is where you take those vocabulary words and phrases you learned in week 1 and you actually connect them. You turn them into real communication.
Right.
The more you actively speak, the source argues, the more natural it feels, the easier it gets. It's like the bridge from just knowing words to actually using them.
So how does the source suggest you actually do that speaking practice? Do you absolutely need a partner?
Well, finding a language partner is definitely presented as a great way. A friend, maybe a tutor, or using online platforms and apps that are designed for language exchange. It's a natural, interactive way to practice.
But what if finding someone like that every day is tricky? Or you're just not ready for that yet?
Okay, so the source offers this really powerful alternative. It might sound a little unusual at first, maybe self-talk.
Self-talk? Like talking to yourself out loud?
Yeah.
How does the source suggest that works? Doesn't that feel a bit weird.
It might feel strange initially, yeah, they acknowledge that. But the source explains it's incredibly effective because it actually trains your brain to start thinking directly in English. Instead of constantly translating back and forth from your native language, it gets you used to forming sentences and using words without the pressure of having another person listening right there.
So instead of just thinking, I need to cut these carrots, you'd actually say aloud, maybe quietly, okay, I am cutting the carrots now. I need a knife. Something like that.
Precisely. Describing your actions, your thoughts, maybe what you see around you, in simple English sentences throughout your day. Another technique they recommend for week 2 is recording yourself speaking.
Ooh, okay. And what are you listening for when you record yourself? Just cringing at how you sound?
Well, hopefully not just cringing. The source is actually really encouraging here. The goal isn't to be overly critical. It's more about listening back objectively.
Okay.
Noticing areas where maybe you pause a lot or you struggle with certain words, or just generally hearing how you actually sound. It's a tool for self-awareness, for noticing things you can work on. And they stress, don't be hard on yourself. Mistakes mean you're trying, you're learning.
That perspective is so important, isn't it? Just the act of trying is progress. The source includes another simple conversation example for practice this week, too.
Right, like, hello, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. What do you do this afternoon?
I'm practicing my English speaking. It's a little hard, but I'm improving.
That's wonderful. Keep practicing every day and you'll get better quickly.
Again, super simple language,
Yeah.
but the focus is on the act of speaking and acknowledging that it's a process, that you're improving.
So the big takeaway for week 2 seems to be just start speaking. Do it. The more you do it, the more comfortable it's going to feel. Even short bursts, whether you're talking to yourself or someone else, are building blocks.
Absolutely, and the source is pretty adamant. Speaking is the absolute core component of fluency. Every word you actually speak out loud actively moves you closer to that goal.
All right, so you've been building your foundation in week 1. You've bravely started practicing speaking in week 2. Now, as you move into week 3, the focus shifts again. This time to polishing things up and, crucially, building that all-important confidence.
Yes, week 3 is really dedicated to pronunciation and solidifying your belief in your own speaking ability. Pronunciation is key, not just for, sounding more natural, but because clear pronunciation directly impacts how well people understand you.
Right, that makes sense.
And naturally, as you become easier to understand, your confidence just grows. They feed each other.
So what's the most effective technique the source suggests for actually improving pronunciation?
They really highlight listening carefully to native speakers and then actively mimicking their sounds. There's a name for this technique: shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, how does that work in practice? What do you actually do?
Basically, you listen to a short piece of audio, could be a sentence, maybe just a phrase from a native speaker. Then you immediately repeat it out loud. The key is trying your best to copy not just the words, but the speaker's rhythm, their tone, the specific pronunciation of the sounds.
So you hear someone say, I am learning to speak English fluently, and you immediately echo back, I am learning to speak English fluently, trying to match their sound exactly.
Exactly like that. It forces you to pay really close attention to the subtleties, the intonation, the way sounds link together, things you might not notice just passively listening.
Okay.
And the source also advises paying special attention to sounds that you personally find difficult in English. For many learners, it's things like the sound in think, or maybe the curves in a sound in river. Practice those tricky sounds slowly and clearly. You can find online guides or apps that focus on specific sounds too.
And that recording technique we talked about for week 2, recording yourself, that probably comes in handy here again, right?
Oh, absolutely. Recording yourself doing the shadowing and then comparing your recording directly to the original native speaker audio, that can really pinpoint exactly which sounds or rhythms you need to adjust. It's very direct feedback.
Now let's talk about confidence. That fear of speaking can be such a huge barrier. How does the source suggest building confidence specifically in week 3?
Well, they acknowledge that confidence is primarily built through practice, through doing it. But they offer a really practical tip. Prepare short scripts or even just key sentences before you know you'll need to speak with someone.
So if you know you're going to, say, order coffee or meet someone new, think ahead about a few things you might say.
Right. Just having a few prepared sentences or phrases ready in your mind can significantly reduce that in-the-moment anxiety. It gives you a sense of control, a starting point, and that naturally boosts your confidence.
That's smart.
And importantly, they remind you again, celebrate the small wins. Every time you have a successful interaction, every time you use a new word correctly or pronounce something clearly, acknowledge it. That's progress, and it builds momentum.
They include another little role play example for this week, focusing on that confidence aspect. Good morning, how are you today?
Good morning, I'm feeling confident because I'm practicing every day.
That's excellent. Keep going and don't worry about mistakes.
Yeah, it's about reinforcing that positive mindset. The core message here is really about believing in your ability to improve through consistent effort. Confidence isn't just a passive feeling, it's something you actively build by doing the work. Keep pushing forward and you'll feel that fluency getting closer.
Okay, foundation built, speaking started, pronunciation and confidence getting polished. Now, week 4. This is the final week of this so many day plan, and it sounds like it's time to take everything you've learned and put it into real-life practice through immersion.
Exactly. This is where you aim to integrate English into your daily environment as much as you possibly can. Immersion basically means surrounding yourself with the language, listening to it, speaking it, reading it, and even trying to think in it.
So how does the source suggest you immerse yourself? I mean, does that require moving to an English-speaking country for the week?
No, not necessarily, especially not within a 30-day plan. The source suggests really practical steps you can take wherever you are, like watching movies or TV shows in English. Maybe start with subtitles in English, just to help. Then, as you get more comfortable, try turning them off entirely. Or listening to English podcasts, music, or radio while you're doing other things, commuting, cooking, chores.
Right, passive listening.
Yeah, it helps you get used to natural speech patterns and different accents without feeling like you're actively studying all the time.
And reading. Is that considered part of immersion too?
Absolutely. Trying to read simple books, maybe news articles online, or even just social media posts in English. It helps expand your vocabulary and improves your understanding of sentence structures, all in a natural context.
But it sounds like the most critical part of immersion, according to this material anyway, is still that real-life speaking practice.
It really is. The source definitely stresses the importance of actually interacting with real people, if possible. Joining things like English language clubs, participating in language exchanges online or in person, or just making an effort to chat with friends or colleagues who speak English.
And if native speakers aren't easily accessible?
Then online platforms are highlighted again as excellent alternatives. Places where you can easily find people for video chats, other learners, or even tutors.
They also mentioned something interesting. Trying to think in English. Instead of constantly translating from your native language in your head, how do you even start doing that? That sounds hard.
It is a conscious effort for sure. The source suggests starting small, like try narrating your day to yourself, but do it in English inside your head. Or plan simple tasks in English.
So instead of thinking, I need milk, try to think I need to buy milk.
Exactly. It helps your brain start making those direct connections between thoughts and English words or sentences, which eventually speeds up your processing when you speak.
And during all this real-life immersion, especially the speaking part, I assume the source's advice about mistakes still applies. Don't panic.
Oh, absolutely. Crucially, don't let the fear of making mistakes stop you from actually practicing in real situations. Immersion is all about communicating and learning from the actual experience of using the language, bumps and all.
So every conversation, every movie you watch without subtitles, every article you manage to read, it's all a chance to improve.
Exactly. The more you actively immerse yourself, the source claims, the faster your fluency will grow. In week 4, the goal is really to make using English feel like a natural, integrated habit, just part of your daily life.
Okay. As we wrap up this look at the 30-day plan outlined in the source, it feels important to talk about the inevitable bumps in the road. What are some common challenges people face, according to this material? Things that might trip you up?
Yeah, the source is pretty realistic, and it does address several common huddles. Probably one of the biggest is just that fear of making mistakes.
Yeah.
We talked about it, but it's huge. Many learners are really held back because they worry about sounding wrong or, not being understood.
And the source's perspective on that is?
That it's completely normal, but they just keep reiterating that mistakes are not failures, they're essential parts of the learning process. In fact, the more you speak and make those inevitable mistakes, the faster you actually improve. It's counterintuitive maybe, but true.
Okay, another classic challenge. Lack of time. Everyone feels busy. How does the source address that?
This is where that core message of consistency comes right back in, isn't it? The source directly counters this by saying, look, consistency is far more important than how long you practice each time.
Right.
Even those 10-15 minutes a day they mention can make a real difference if you do it consistently and with focus. Don't aim for 2 hours once a week. Aim for 15 minutes every day.
That really is the powerful nugget there. You don't necessarily need hours, you just need that daily dedication. Okay, what about feeling frustrated when progress feels slow? Because sometimes it does.
Oh, definitely. Learning a language takes time, and fluency isn't built in some perfectly straight, upward line. The source really emphasizes patience and persistence here, and they advise celebrating the small wins along the way.
How does that help?
Well, every new word you manage to use successfully, every sentence you understand a bit better, every time you speak a little more clearly, that's genuine progress. Acknowledging it keeps you motivated.
Makes sense. And finally, finding good resources or practice partners can feel daunting sometimes.
The source acknowledges this too, but it points out that today, honestly, with so many online tools, apps, language communities, there are far more options available than ever before. It might take a little effort to explore and find what clicks for you, but the resources are definitely out there.
So the key message running through all these challenges seems to be, try to stay positive and just don't give up. These hurdles are just stepping stones on the path.
Exactly. And the source offers a few final tips to help you keep that momentum going strong, even after the initial 30 days might be up.
Okay, what are those? First and foremost, they basically say, never stop practicing.
Right.
Simple as that. Keep speaking, keep listening, keep reading, maybe even writing a bit in English every single day. Make a lifelong habit.
It's not like a destination you just arrive at in 30 days and you're done.
No, it's a continuous journey of improvement. They also suggest setting small, achievable goals daily or weekly. Like maybe just commit to learning 5 new words today, or having one short English conversation. Why small goals specifically? Because they feel manageable, they don't feel overwhelming, and when you hit them, you get that little sense of accomplishment, which fuels your motivation much better than setting some huge, scary target you might miss.
Yeah, okay. And revisiting the mistake point. One last time, they say again, don't be afraid of mistakes.
Seriously, they are proof you are actively learning. Embrace them as feedback, learn from them, move on.
Yes. And finally, maybe the most enjoyable tip. Stay curious and actually have fun with it.
Definitely. Explore topics you genuinely enjoy, but do it in English. Watch movies you like, listen to music you love, find podcasts about your hobbies in English. When you're actually having fun, it doesn't feel like studying, and you're much, much more likely to stick with it long term.
Enjoying the process is a huge motivator.
It really is. And always, always come back to that core definition of fluency that the source started with. It's not about being perfect. It's about confident, clear communication. It's about expressing yourself.
And if you ever feel stuck, the advice seems pretty simple. Just go back to the basics we discussed. Focus on listening, prioritize speaking practice, and just keep pushing forward one step at a time.
You have the tools, you have the roadmap from this source material. It's about believing in the power of that consistent, focused practice.
Wow. Okay, that was a really thorough deep dive into this 30-day path to English fluency as laid out in that Easy English Talk source material.
We really have dissected it, haven't we? We looked at the source's specific definition of fluency, focusing on confident communication, not perfection. We walked through their step-by-step weekly plan.
Yeah, foundation, speaking practice, pronunciation, immersion.
Right. And we tackled how the source suggests approaching those common challenges that inevitably pop up along the way.
This deep dive has definitely pulled out what this particular source considers the crucial nuggets of knowledge for anyone aiming for this kind of goal. Looking back at it all, what stands out to you the most from this plan?
You know, for me, it's how strongly the source emphasizes the power of consistency, even in really short bursts. That idea that just 10 or 15 minutes of focused daily practice, targeting specific skills each week, can actually build meaningful progress towards fluency in just 1 month. That's incredibly compelling. It kind of takes this giant, maybe intimidating goal and makes it feel achievable through small, deliberate actions that just compound over time.
It really reframes the commitment, doesn't it? It's not about finding these huge chunks of free time that maybe you don't have. It's about making English practice a small but non-negotiable part of your daily routine.
Exactly, that small, consistent effort.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener? Hearing this breakdown, are you ready to maybe commit to that small daily step? Whether you're just starting out on your English journey or perhaps looking to push past a plateau you've been stuck on. Are you willing to focus on building that consistent habit? Knowing that confidence and flow rather than perfect grammar are the real achievable goals according to this source.
The path is laid out pretty clearly in this material. It really just comes down to taking that first small step and then the next one and the one after that.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep practicing, try to stay positive, and keep